The next function of the M7 that we want to talk about is the pulse wave Doppler.
Okay.
And that button is just below color a little bit to the right on the M7. So if you see that PW, that stands for pulse wave. And when you turn that on, you see that your cursor and your essentially this little gate comes up on the screen, and you're going to use that to interrogate or evaluate a vessel.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain things that you can change on the pulse wave Doppler in order to modify the type of vessel or this sample volume that we're using. That's how big that space is there on the sample volume.
Okay.
On the gate.
Right here.
Correct.
Okay.
And so if you want to change that, you'll see on the soft keys some of the options are SV, which stands for sample volume.
Okay.
And so when you use the soft keys or use the trackball and the set key, there's the 3 ways to do it.
Right. But if I try to use the trackball, it's moving here, so maybe it's because I got it started already? Or
and again, so that's where the cursor button will come in handy.
Okay.
And we had discussed that a little bit, but if you're tuning in for this chapter, you want to know that that cursor allows you to get your little pointer, your mouse sort of thing, and you can move that down to the sample volume and be able to adjust it using the set key or also using the rotary navigation key, multifunction key, and you can see that you're getting smaller as you go counterclockwise. And then you can also have the ability, like we discussed, to use the soft keys to manipulate the sample volume, again, the SV.
Okay. Now how would I go, so once I got it, how do I go back to being able to move the gate instead of widening it or shortening it?
You can go ahead and hit cursor again, and that'll take away your cursor and get you back to your mode, which is your pulse wave Doppler, and allow you to, you can see that it's green now on the screen.
So the green is the active.
Correct,
mode.
Yep.
Okay.
And now there are a couple other things that you might want to think about before you start listening to that vessel is how you're steered to the vessel.
So if, for example, I was like this?
You would want to change your steer, and to do that, again, there's a couple ways to do it. You can use your trackball and the set key, and you can also use, if the trackball is over, your cursor is over your choice, you can use that rotary navigation key or the set key.
Okay.
And you can see that now that this is white, you're manipulating it, but it's not active.
Right. So then I would have to.
Yeah, exactly. You can go back to the green, active pulse wave Doppler.
Okay. I kind of like it. I'm going to steer it back.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah. Okay. Because this is the way it's moving.
Yep.
All right.
So now you're looking
I'm going to get out and hit the set key again. Cursor.
Yep. You
Cursor
got
to
it.
get it out. Okay.
So now you're lined up in a vessel, and you want to make sure that the angle in which that you're looking at the vessel is accurate. So there's a couple ways to control whether you're at an exact 60 degree or if you're at a 0 degree. And then there's also a way to change if you just want to do it by 1 degree at a time.
Okay.
So what we call a quick angle right here on the screen, and I'll use the cursor to point that out, is 60 one way, 60 degrees the other way, or 0 degrees, if you have a vessel that's dropping off and going vertically.
Okay, and it doesn't change
the steer. That just controls
changes
the angle, correct.
Okay, got it.
And then if you see...
And here's where it says...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, you got it. And then the other thing to note is that right next to the quick angle selection on those keys, those soft keys, is the finite adjustment of one degree at a time. And just like you've used in the past, you're seeing that when you put your cursor over that angle selection, you can adjust using the rotary navigation key that you are. You can also use the set key. Noting that when you do the set key, it tends to move you up in your selection, whereas if you use the rotary navigation key, that allows you to go either direction.
And you're always going to want to be if
correct.
60,
yeah, if you go over 60,
really
then we might run into some issues. Yeah, you might want to rethink your approach.
Yeah. So most of the time, you should use this if you're going to have to change it off of 60.
Correct.
The rotary dial. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
And now, once you've made those adjustments to your sample and where your gate is, now we're at the point where you just hit cursor again. That's good. And now you can start listening into that vessel.
How do I do that?
Couple ways to do that. You can either press the pulse wave Doppler button again, or you can also press update, which will allow you to jump between an inactive pulse wave Doppler and an active pulse wave Doppler.
So if I keep hitting update, I can go back, adjust.
Toggling back and forth between your live image and
Duplex.
and your duplex. Yep.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay. So obviously You know what I'm going to ask you next.
There's a couple things that might be wrong with this image as you're looking at it, yep.
Right.
And to make those adjustments, what we'd want to do is probably invert the pulse wave segment, the waveform sample, and then we also want to adjust the baseline, I would imagine, because that won't give you very accurate information. So just like you're doing and how you've done these adjustments on these soft keys on the menu, is you're using the trackball and the set key. You could have also used those soft keys to make that adjustment up and down on the baseline. So
back to here, I stopped it because I could hear it because it was a little loud when you were talking. So if I were going to adjust that volume,
yes,
can I do that?
So the fastest and easiest way is to use the function, and right here on the keys you can see that there's a little speaker which is a universal sign for volume, and when I hold the function key and press that, you can see that my volume is a little bit, it was too high, you're right, it was kind of drowning us out a little bit. And in the patient's ear.
Right. Okay, but that's good because sometimes it's too low and you really want to hear it.
Right, you need to hear, exactly.
So it's function and that.
Yep. Okay. And then obviously right above it is volume plus, which would be louder.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
And similar to the color Doppler that we talked about, you do have a scale where you want to make sure that your velocities are matching the type of waveforms and flow patterns of the vessels that you're looking at.
And I think this is good for people that are not used to using systems, not sonographers maybe, or other users that are newer to ultrasound, that you really want to be aware of this number and this number because you're going to miss a lot of that.
Correct. You want to make sure that with that scale, when you want to have that waveform be fitting right in that window where you can see
like all
parts of it. Yeah. You know, if it's too high, it's not as accurate of information. You want to kind of make sure, just like we have optimized, you know, our image here, we want to optimize the pulse waveform as well.
You can't itouch to optimize, can you?
It actually works really well. If you have a strong arterial signal, like you do right now, if you hit itouch, it does a nice job of adjusting your baseline and your scale. One thing that the itouch can't do is your invert, you know, because that...
You want it in the right direction.
Correct. You want to have it going the right way, either above the baseline or below. And then if you have a nice strong arterial waveform, that itouch works very nicely to hone in.
Well, it gives you a place to start.
It does.
You know, like if you use the itouch, then you're like, well, that looks good, or I can adjust it from there. Yep. It gives you a nice blade.
And you can still make adjustments to your angle from here while you're doing the live Doppler.
Okay.
You can still make those adjustments.
Okay.
Obviously, you want to stay in that correct angle.
Right.
But you do have the ability, you know, this is where the finite angle adjustment may come into place as you change and manipulate, you know, which way the vessel and how you're oriented to it.
So if I wanted like triplex mode, do you have that where I can see both? Okay.
We do. So if you come down on the menu options, you know, the top row is highlighted. We haven't talked about these much, but now that we're running a mode that might involve making some other adjustments, you know, you can come down, pressing down on this navigation soft key to this next row. Now we see that we have a duplex, and when we toggle that, it allows us to go on and off. So now we have a live image up here as well as your Doppler running at the same time.
Nice.
And you can just toggle that on and off. That's really handy, you know, if you're walking through a stenosis.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's smart. And sweep speed too is important.
So then that's down on that same row. When we came down a row, we saw the duplex on and off, and the sweep speed is over there in that corner. And so just like you've made adjustments before, if you hit that cursor, you can change that with the navigation key, also with the set key, or on the soft keys right up there. And that's, you know, user preference. If you're a physician, you know, you'll like it a certain way. If you're a sonographer, if you're a nurse.
Depending on what you're looking at.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Yep, all sorts of changes you can make to adjust it the way that you want to have it.
And you could adjust it when you get there as the clinical applications. You could adjust the sweep speed depending on the exam. So if I'm doing a renal artery study and I wanted a specific speed versus a carotid, you could set it and it would save it for you. Yeah,
exactly. So these are all things that you may want to explore prior to having someone like me come out and work with you.
Well, that's what's nice about this, I think, this video is that if you can get started and kind of get the lay of the land a little bit, then provides you more questions for when you arrive. You know
Correct.
what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's good. Okay.
It's almost like reading a manual, but doing it physically with the machine,
Yeah.
and starting to understand the basics and how, what makes the machine unique and where the button layout is.
Yeah. I mean, you give so many options of how to maneuver it. It's, manipulate things, whether
Yeah.
it's close here or up here, that gives everybody options. That's
And people
nice.
find, they find that niche of what they like. Some people absolutely love just always using the trackball and or the rotary nav key. Some people that I've worked with just love to come up here and toggle with those soft keys. So it's nice that there's options with that.
So it looks like when I freeze it that the cine clip will stay, which is nice. So I can cine back if I wanted a specific part. And I wonder if I can I toggle back?
You
and forth?
can. So if you press the pulse wave, or if you turn off the pulse wave, go ahead and hit that. You can now cine back to find that
that's nice.
optimal B mode image.
Nice.
And then if you hit the pulse wave again, it'll bring it
Oh.
right back up. So that's a way
That's nice.
to post process to get exactly what you want on the screen in order to make it, a clinically acceptable image.
Yeah, that's really nice.